Hi, I'm DK Will, and this is DK. We'll talk about it. What you have in front of you here is a graph depicting the psychology of the market. And if there is a psychology of the market, that means that you can either utilize it or fall prey to it. So if there's a psychology of the market, maybe somebody's trying to psych you out. And we're going to talk about that in this video. And I'm going to demonstrate how communications media tries to psych you out.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right.
We are going to consider this article here to prove my point. It says the XRP price prediction, altcoins fall below $2.30 support as capital outflows signal. XRP's faced rejection at $2.60 earlier in May, and its descent below $2.30 saw the May lows at 205 retested. It broke past a descending trendline resistance but ended up forming a range. A drop below the mid-range level might be halted for now. It goes on to speak about how the consideration of the SEC about the Wisdom Tree XRP Trust may have helped, and as expected, it may have buoyed speculation. Y'all tell me how to pronounce that around XRP. I'll go to the dictionary and click that here it said word. It's a buoy, isn't it? So that's buoyed. All right. Moving on though. It says it showed the outcome approaching a low from early May, something that could yield a bullish price reaction. However, the indicators were bearish at press time, as was Bitcoin short-term momentum. And then it says XRP selling pressure is beginning to intensify. This all will rattle your cage if you're a little insecure, won't it? It says here the price action in recent weeks showed that the range formation was the more likely answer and not a bullish recovery. It talks about March. It talks about April. It says later on here, the technical findings highlighted noticeable selling pressure behind the recent losses. The 1 month liquidation heat map revealed sizable magnetic zones having swept up in recent days. One cluster of activity was left at the 205 range. It gives even more foreboding news. Hence, it seemed likely the zone would be revisited, especially if the selling pressure does not ease soon. Traders can brace for a move towards 2 to 205. If the selling pressure, the noticeable selling pressure, who is creating this selling pressure that they want you to believe that to psych you out? Okay, we'll start here. I have not been reticent about my feelings that the institutions and the big players and the whales are the ones manipulating the price of XRP. And that the whole goal is to shake it out of our hands. And by the way, I looked it up. It's buoy. So buoyed. I had the guys, the dictionary, talk to me. But nonetheless, I made it clear that retail does not impact the price. And we just considered that story, that their article that repeatedly said that there was selling pressure. Well, the reason we're going to start here at this rich list is to make the point. Now I'm going to scroll down, and like I said earlier, I'm going to keep these videos short, and hopefully you'll enjoy them. But right here, this article, firstly, this article was done in March. Remember, they were talking about March. This article was done in March, March 3rd. And here we have the current rich list. Now I want you to notice that on this current rich list, the smaller guys, like the average retail investor, I can't say us because I got more than this, but nonetheless, the 10% own 2,500 at this point, and that we're not going to look at what it takes to be on the rich list. We're going to look at how many wallets there are. 622,815 wallets. If we go up a level to 9,000, we have 311,408 wallets. If we go up to the 4%, getting close to 12,000, we have 126,000 wallets. And if we go up to the 17,000 range, we have 186,845 wallets. And if we go to 2%, we'll go to the 2%. We have 124,563 wallets. The average retail investor is, especially if they're recent to the party, is going to fall below this line, somewhere below this line in their wallets. And of course, there's multiple wallets. But here's the point. When we go to another article here, where you need at least 2,500, this article is April. And let's take another look at this rich list. Even though last time you needed 4 extra XRP to make the list, there are 635,552 new wallets compared to 622,815. Now, I can't do the math real fast, but in my mind, that's about 11,700 new wallets, give or take. Then at the 5% level, we're looking at 317,776 wallets. But back in March, we were looking at 311,408 wallets. So the comparative math for that is we've added another 6,300 wallets at the now 9,000 XRP level, which used to be the 91. Minuscule difference. At 4%, we were sitting at 249,126 wallets, and now we're looking at 254,200. An increase in the number of wallets. Therefore, multiply that increase times the number of XRP. Does that sound like a selling pressure or a buying pressure to you? Let's keep going. At 3%, we went to 100. We went to 190,665, but a month before that, 3% was 186,845, and that's at 17,000 plus XRP. And the new figure now is under 17,000, but it's still an increase in the number of wallets. And then we stopped at the 2%, where we have 127,110. But we had 124,563. So the point is, my friends, the smaller players with the smaller wallets had significant increases at every stage, not evidence of selling pressure. Would you agree with me
Hmm?
on that?
Huh?
I hope you do agree with me on that. And so, who's really doing all the selling that will really impact the price? Because the average individual is buying. And in fact, when you look at the two and you compare not just the bottom 2% to 10%, but even the 1% to 100%, every single wallet increased in number. So that's an increase of every single wallet times every category of the size of the wallets. So that is not in the time period of which that article was speaking, March and April and May. That is not selling pressure. So who's really up to no good here? Well, when you look at this list of wallets, of course, Ripple owns many, but look at the market makers on what they own over here. Column billions, hundreds of millions. It is the big guys that own enough XRP. Here's Chris Larson. There are that own enough XRP to manipulate the markers, and that there's Arthur Brito, and that is the ones who impact the price. I'm not saying those names because I think they're doing it. I think they're smartly holding on as well. Jed McCaleb sold a bunch, but these people are holding on. But it is the markets that own enough to churn the prices, and in so doing, subject the unwary, the easily misled, bogeys around now, and the easily impressed to suffer from the psychology of the market. Because when you look at the psychology of the market, what you see is manipulation where these little dips right here, anger, they've tried that, right? They tried panic with the SEC back in there. They've tried depression. They've given these little bumps to make you not believe that there's going to be a rally. Right here is disbelief. Then they try to give you hope, but they put you through this ringer like this. But just remember when it happens, bogey, when it happens and it takes a dip, it is the trough. It is the point of maximum financial opportunity. So it's articles like these that we have to read with discretion and fortunately read with information provided by content creators like me. And there's others. Because from what I saw, there wasn't a whole lot of selling pressure, was there? And I also noticed that this was similar to the psychology of the market. But the selling pressure that they're talking about didn't occur according to these rich lists. There was buying pressure. So who's manipulating the price? They churn that price. And I'm going to show you one more thing before I go is this list. Because this list breaks it down even more on account balances and wallets. It's if you are interested to know such a thing. Here it is in front of you on all the XRP wallets. Where do you fall? That's all I wanted to talk about. Keep your gorilla grip on your XRP. They're trying to play you. It's priceless. I'm DK Will, and this is DK Will Talk About It. And I've talked about it. Have a wonderful day.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right.